Your credit report has USAA accounts on it that don't belong to you. Personal information that isn't yours. Your frustration grows, you're turned down for credit. But you have a secret weapon. That is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or the FCRA. Hi, this is Consumer Protection Attorney Bill Clanton. I've helped thousands of consumers deal with personal financial issues like credit reporting issues, debt collection harassment, and all kinds of other consumer-related issues. In this video, we're talking about USAA accounts that have been opened in your name without your authorization. This is nothing new for USAA. They have got an incredible number of complaints out there. They've got just over 1 star with the Better Business Bureau with almost 200 complaints. They've got over 500 complaints with the CFPB. Their Google reviews are close to 1 star with 500 reviews. USAA Federal Savings Bank has got terrible reviews and a bad reputation. Nothing tells this story better than the story of David Smith, a guy in South Carolina whose accounts were hacked by Russian hackers. I know it sounds cliche, but Russian hackers are out there, and they targeted David Smith's accounts and opened up fake accounts in his name at USAA Federal Savings Bank. He called the bank to dispute this. They said, "Oh, we'll take care of it." He called them repeatedly, disputed it repeatedly. They kept promising to take care of it, but they didn't. USAA reported him to Early Warning Services. If you're not aware of Early Warning Services, go take a look at our video on it. I'll link it here. But Early Warning Services is a credit reporting agency for banks and banking. Scary stuff. Be sure to watch that video. But Smith was reported as delinquent to Early Warning Services. This means any other bank who he tried to open an account with would see his delinquencies with his fake accounts at USAA. This ruined his life. His finances were completely messed up because of this. He sued USAA in a case that's still ongoing. But David isn't the only one. Like I said before, there's nearly 150 lawsuits that have been filed against USAA Federal Savings Bank under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, many of which involve identity theft and the opening of false accounts with USAA FSB. So how does the law help you? Well, in David's case, and possibly in your case, and anybody who has false accounts opened with USAA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is your secret weapon. It's the tool that allows you to have these closed, that requires USAA to close these accounts and take them off of your credit report. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act was enacted in 1970, and it's a law that applies to to all credit reporting agencies and all furnishers of credit information. It applies a little bit differently to each category, but credit reporting agencies are not supposed to report information that they know is wrong. And furnishers or banks like USAA are not allowed to furnish information to the credit bureaus that they know is wrong. When you dispute information with the credit bureaus are required to do an investigation of that information in response to that dispute. Also, they're required to forward all of your dispute materials you sent them to the furnisher, in this case, USAA. So you send a dispute to Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and Novus, or any of the other credit reporting agencies, EWS, and they are required to investigate and forward your dispute onto USAA or whoever you're complaining about in your dispute. The furnisher then has 30 days to conduct its own investigation and respond back to the credit bureau, who then gets back to you. It's a fairly simple process, but it can get kind of complicated. And the credit bureaus are terrible about investigating your disputes. They usually just rely on what the furnisher says. The furnishers aren't much better than the credit bureaus. So you can dispute it and not see any change in your credit report for things that you can prove in your dispute are incorrect. So disputing is one right you have that's given to you by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The other is to get your credit report, get your whole credit file, not just your credit report. There's a difference between your credit report and your credit file. Your credit report is what can legally be reported about you from your credit file. So everything that's less than 7 years old, everything that is reportable about you. Your credit file, on the other hand, contains everything that every furnisher has sent to the credit bureaus about you. It's a much larger file, and typically the older you are, the more credit transactions you've had, and so the older you are, the more will be in your file. 15 U.S.C. 1681 is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the law itself. And under 1681G, you can request your entire file. You need to send in your copy of your driver's license, social security card, a current utility bill, your identifying information. And if you're a victim of identity theft, you can include a police report. The bureaus are then required to give you your entire credit file. This can be very helpful in tracking down identity thieves, trying to figure out who stole your identity, and proving that you are a victim of identity theft. So if you want to get USAA on the hook for violating the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it's not enough to just call USAA and tell them these are not my accounts. The way the Fair Credit Reporting Act is unusual, and courts have expressed frustration at this, and a lot of people don't understand it. So USAA is not allowed to report information about you that it knows is incorrect, but you can't sue USAA for doing this. You have to dispute it, and you can't dispute it with just USAA. You have to dispute it with the credit bureaus. You have to dispute it with Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian, and they have to send that information to USAA, and then USAA has to verify the incorrect information as accurate back to the bureaus, and the bureaus get back to you. A direct dispute to USAA does not create liability under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Only a dispute that is sent to USAA through one of the credit bureaus, whether, like I said, it's Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, Innovus, Early Warning Systems, or one of the other credit bureaus. So when USAA receives a dispute from a credit bureau, then it has an obligation to correct that information, block that information, erase that information from its files, and get back to the bureaus. If they fail to do that, then you have got a case against USAA. USAA could be liable to you under the Fair Credit Reporting Act for not correcting information that you have proven is inaccurate. So how do you prove it's inaccurate? In the case of identity theft, a police report is the best tool for that. See our video on making a police report. Once you have a police report in hand, send a dispute letter, and see our video on making dispute letters. Send that dispute letter to all the credit bureaus where it's being reported and ask them to remove it or block it. Under 1681C-2, identity theft information has to be blocked by the credit bureaus. I know this is a lot of information. If you need any help, we're here. We don't charge any money to help you out with these credit problems. The Fair Credit Reporting Act provides for damages. If you can prove that a party who you sued under the Fair Credit Reporting Act acted willfully, you can get punitive damages and your actual damages. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act pays my attorney's fees, not my clients. If you talk to any other Fair Credit Reporting Act attorney, they should tell you the same thing. They will not charge you because they'll get paid if they're successful in bringing the case. I hope you've learned something in this video today, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you.